Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of FightbackMedia.com, 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 and FightbackMediaTV.com. We trust that you are well today. It's Friday. Friday. It's Friday. Holy crap. It's been a week. I ain't gonna lie. It's been a week. Um, I am thrilled to be here. I had on yesterday, I had lunch with a good friend of mine, a fantastic friend of mine. I love the smell of jet fuel in the morning. It smells like freedom. My friend Carl and his beautiful wife Vicky, and it was just nice, sort of reminiscing and catching up and stuff. I'd love to have a longer form. It was compacted. I kind of my fault, you know. I work every day, so I don't have the long form to. Let's just sit and talk for 6 hours, 8 hours, and that's what that conversation needed. It needed 8, 9, 10 hours to talk it all out. But we got 20 minutes, 20 good, solid 20 minutes in. I hope that we can continue more. Carl, Vicky, good to see you. God bless you. Thank you for meeting. Thank you for meeting and having lunch with me. I completely enjoyed it thoroughly. I trust that the rest of what you guys have planned is better than you can imagine. They're finally retired. And I pray it is the best thing ever for you. All right. A couple of stories here to finish the week with. Hopefully, some of them will give you some yay to go into the weekend with. One is a girls basketball team in Vermont decided they were just not going to play and forfeit if they had to in a tournament because they didn't want to play against a team that had a boy on it, a transgender player. They just said, we're not doing it. Whatever. So that's an interesting story. The Chicago police chief said adieu before he got kicked out. He saw the writing on the wall. David Brown, the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, announced his resignation after Lori Lightfoot was defeated in her reelection bid. They figured that the new bosses will want their own people, so as they do so often. So out he is. Yeah, and Phil Washington. You don't know Phil Washington. Phil Washington is President Biden's nominee to serve as the administrator of the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority. It's kind of a mess. It's just kind of a mess. But I want to put it all in perspective as we talk about it. Alrighty, we'll be back. More of the program right after this. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet. And you may think with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler, that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices. And you'd be right. They most certainly are. Um, but you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those one of those places is freedomforum.website. Freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or a phone number. My florist is Blooming Days Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com, and you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. Alrighty, welcome back. Trust that you are fine this glorious Friday morning. Friday. And you're looking forward to a fantabulous weekend. It was, the wind out there right now is blowing. It's blowing. So we're probably, as I head out to my second job, probably going to have some wide closures due to wind. It's going to kind of suck, but can't control the wind. Care more about your safety than we do your happiness. Any case, looking forward to that today. Something that ought to give you a yes, dang it. There was a girls' basketball team in Vermont, of all the places, that forfeited a tournament after refusing to compete against a team that included a boy. Oh, I'm sorry, a transgender player. Mid-Vermont Christian School was scheduled to compete against Long Trail School on February 21st, but the school pulled out of the tournament due to the male-bodied athlete on the Long Trails team. This is what they said. We withdrew from the tournament because we believe playing against an opponent with a biological male, a boy, jeopardizes the fairness of the game and the safety of our players, Vicky Fogg, the head of the MVCS, said in a statement. Allowing biological males, boys, to participate in women's sports is a bad precedent for the future of women's sports in general. Reportedly, Long Trail's team had been advancing in the tournament. Surprise, surprise. This week, we reported how We saw anyway how Greg Steube, Republican from Florida, and Senator Tommy Tuberville, former coach, I think of Auburn, yes, uh, put forth a piece of legislation called the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2023 that would prohibit male-bodied transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. I don't know how they can do that legally, but okay. Now, before we go on, I thought I think it interesting how the left has switched positions on that. You know, frankly, it was the left, it was Democrats, it was liberals that forced the creation of Title IX. Title IX exists to promote women's sports at the university level, and then, of course, in the high school level as well. To protect those sports, to give them as equal footing as they possibly could. Even though, frankly, most women's sports at every level are not money making. And they're not money making because of patriarchy. Please stop that nonsense as you watch. They don't make money because women women don't support it. They don't. Now, the idea that men should support these sports, but men will support the sports that are most exciting, that most fit what they like to watch. So if women want these sports to succeed, these places ought to be packed by feminists. The WNBA ought to sell out to feminists every game in every city. But they don't. They don't. But now it's interesting that the tables have turned, and it's Republicans and conservatives that are trying to preserve women's sports in the pure sense. The coach says, I think this is Tuberville. Tuberville says, through my coaching career, I saw the incomparable success of Title IX and the educational and personal opportunities sports have provided to millions of female athletes. For more than 50 years, this law has empowered young women to grow personally, compete professionally, and receive scholarships to further their education. The positive impacts of fair playing in the field of women's sports are unmatched. But the Biden administration is forcing female athletes to the sidelines by allowing biological males to compete where they do not belong, he continued. It's unfair, it's unsafe, it's wrong, and we cannot stand by and let girls and women in sports lose to the radical left's agenda. Now, part of the problem is how this gets super complicated, and you know what I'm going to say here, is that unfortunately, a lot of these very same girls, these very same women, support these weird leftist policies that are screwing them out of opportunity, that's making participating in their sports untenable because it may even be dangerous. And they're providing an atmosphere in a lot of places where it is tough, scary, maybe even impossible to speak out against what's going on without being ostracized. We're going to do a video on common sense. Not today, but soon. And I'd love to hear in the comments some of your views on common sense so we can bring that up, this concept of common sense. Anyway, Town Hall interviewed Riley Gaines, a former swimmer at the University of Kentucky, who competed against Will Thomas. I go by Leah. The dude swimmer who began identifying as transgender and competing on the women's team at the University of Pennsylvania. At the NCAA championship, Gaines and Thomas tied in a race, but Thomas got to take the trophy home because he was so brave. Within the past year, in terms of progress, there has not been a clear solution to the problem. of transgender athletes at hand. There has been an influx of biological males competing in women's sports. Gaines, who was a spokeswoman for the Independent Women's Forum, told Town Hall. She says, "I think that Leah Thomas' situation, bringing this to the national stage, opened the door. People see an opportunity when they see this, and they're willing to take advantage of it, at the expense, of course, of female athletes. If this continues, it's a slippery slope. It's truly only a matter of time before one transgender athlete winning a national title in a women's category becomes 3 or 5 or 10 or so on," Gaines concluded. "I think, truthfully, it will become the integrity of women's sports will be lost." The thing that, frankly, the left and Democrats and liberals built because of LGBTQ, they're destroying. The monster is eating itself. The monster is eating itself. If you have a girl, a daughter, participating in sports, please, if there's an opportunity to speak out in favor of girls and women's sports, do it, because that's the only way that we have a odds chance in hell. I don't know what that means, but it's the only opportunity that we have to make sure that we can stem the tide of this madness. And it truly is just madness. Madness. Madness, I tell you. Madness. We'll be back. We'll be back right after these messages. So is it okay now, because it was, I mean, during the Trump administration, it is okay to talk about the president's
yeah. We talked about mental health elderly, so let's talk about this guy mental health.
The president's mental acuity, because there's sometimes where it seems to be lacking. Have you seen?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's especially bad. I mean, I'm talking about sometimes it's like really bad. Like, have you seen the picture?
I was told not to take any questions.
I was told not to take any questions. They told they're going to be mad at me.
They're going to be mad at me.
Mr.
President, are you the president, or were you 5?
You see, what I want. See, the next question is, excuse me,
I was told to call on what you call for NBC. Who's telling you to call on?
That's the question that we ought to be asking. Who's telling you this?
I mean, I don't understand why nobody won't ask that question.
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Who's telling you to call on these people in the media?
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Probably so.
Yeah, welcome back. As a lot of you have probably heard, I have decided, because I've always thought it cool, to start playing with flight simulator. I would love to, when I finally retire, I don't know what the hell that means, get my private pilot's license. And right now I can't, because it's $15,000 to do, and I don't have $15,000. YouTube isn't. I'm not getting paid for these videos, so YouTube isn't coming across with the cash. So that's maybe a little ways off. But in the meantime, I'm doing a lot of flight simulating. I don't know if you can't see that. I got my yoke right here, and just tighten down my yoke. I got my rudder pedals on the floor, right here on the floor. I got my throttle quadrant right here. Maybe I'll show you a picture of it here in the video. So I've kind of been into some of into this flight stuff. Watch a lot of pilots on on YouTube. I do more of that than probably anything. Matter of fact, this cup is from a guy that I watch. Thanks, Greg. There's an opening at the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority. I figure after watching this dude, who is Biden's nominee, I should throw my hat in the ring. Phil Washington, who is President Joe Biden's nominee to serve as administrator of the FAA, continues to face questions about his qualifications to serve in the role. And his testimony before Congress isn't dispelling doubts about his ability to run America's civil aviation system and keep its citizens safe when they fly. And that's what this is about. Already, Senator Ted Cruz has raised concerns about Washington's experience and resume, suggesting President Biden is playing politics rather than prioritizing the safety and efficiency of America's air transportation system. Washington's previous gigs have also seen accusations of wasteful spending and mismanagement of resources. And when he served honorably and while he served honorably in the military, lawmakers pointed out that Washington has no experience or qualifications related to aviation safety. This was outrageously abundantly clear this week as he testified before the Senate committee, the Commerce Committee, when Senator Ted Budd asked Biden's FAA nominee questions about an FAA administrator would probably need to know as a matter of course. Not only did he not know, well, watch the video.
So, Mr. Washington, can you quickly tell me what airspace requires an ADS-B transponder?
Not sure I can answer that question right now.
That's okay. We'll just keep going. So that's a pretty important part. So what are the 6 types of special use airspace that protect this national security that appear on FAA charts?
Sorry, Senator, I cannot answer that question.
Okay. So what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under Basic Med?
Senator, I'm not a pilot, so.
But obviously you'd oversee the Federal Aviation Administration. So any idea what those restrictions are under Basic Med, quickly?
Well, some of the restrictions I think would be high blood pressure. Some of them would be.
It's more like how many passengers per airplane, how many pounds in different categories, and what altitude you can fly under. So, and then amount of knots. It's under 250 knots. So it's not having anything to do with blood pressure. So can you tell me what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall?
Again, Senator, I'm not a pilot.
Okay, let's keep going. What are the 3 aircraft certifications the FAA requires as part of the manufacturing process? Quickly, please. 3 aircraft certifications.
Again, what I would say to that is that one of my first priorities would be to fully implement that Certification Act and report
You know the
back to
3
this
types,
committee.
Mr. Washington? The 3
No.
types? Okay. Yeah, that's type certificate, production certificate, and airworthiness certificate. Okay, all right. Let's just keep going, see if we can get lucky here. So can you tell me what the minimum separation distance is for landing and departing airliners during the daytime, Mr. Washington?
I don't want to guess on that, Senator.
Are you familiar with the difference between Part 107 and Part 44809 when it comes to unmanned aerial standards? Unmanned like drones, are you familiar with the difference?
Yes.
Okay, you know the difference between those 2, Part 44809 and Part 107? Do you know the difference there?
No, I cannot
That's okay.
spell that out.
Okay. You gotta know what a transponder is. Now, you gotta know at least as much. Okay. You have to know at least as much as I know. You have to know at least as much as I know. I know what a transponder is. I do. You got to know the different airspaces. Now, no, Phil Washington is not a pilot. And he said that a number of times. You saw that. and he is not flying aircraft. But all this information, when you're talking about airline safety or aviation safety, when you combine that with commercial aircrafts and private aircraft in the airspace over the country, to have a working knowledge of how that works puts you in a much better headspace to administrate it. Now, this dude is going there to be a bureaucrat. He's there to be a paper pusher. He's there to push an agenda. He has no concerns at all about aviation safety and what it takes to to make the system more efficient. Or he's there to be part of an agenda. He's there to be a bureaucrat. Like you got to ask, what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under basic med? I'm not a pilot. Again, the person who is responsible for the rule book, and I'm learning, there is quite a rule book, should be familiar with the basic parts of the rule book. You don't have to be able to fly a plane. I'm not asking the dude to be able to fly an F-22 Raptor or a 787 Dreamliner. I'm not expecting that at all. Or even a Cessna 172 or 152 or a Piper 140. But I know if it's modified, its total weight its total gross weight can be 2,150 pounds. Now, all this information is available on the internet. Remember I told you I've not gone to flight school because I can't afford it. Oh, but the 140 that's not modified can carry 100 pounds less. Burns about 6 gallons of fuel a minute. Fairly fuel efficient with no power. How do I know that? I don't know about you, but me, the person who is in charge of the FAA should have some basic knowledge of how planes fly. And you can have that without being a pilot. Just some basic. When again, you saw when he got asked, well, what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall? That is as about a basic question about planes as you can imagine. When the only thing that Bud didn't do was ask him, do you think that planes fly by magic, sir? But this is the politics that these people play. It should be terrifying to you as people get on airplanes and fly around the country. That the person who may be the head of the FAA, who's responsible for your safety, doesn't know what Class G airspace is or Class B airspace. Doesn't seem to have any idea that they even exist. That level of ignorance and incompetence should disqualify you from that job. Now, he may be great in other jobs, something that he knows some about, a little bit. But this one is lack of knowledge of basic stuff. These weren't hard questions if you are into aviation. I think there are 7 questions, and I think I was able to answer all of them. When I watched the video that you just watched, I think I was able to answer all of them. Which lets you know I have the most rudimentary knowledge that this dude doesn't have. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Congress is still run by Democrats. I mean, the Senate is still run by the Democrats. We'll see if they turn this guy down for your safety and mine. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet, and you may think with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices, and you'd be right. They most certainly are. But you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those places is freedomforum.website. freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or phone number. My florist is Blooming Days Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com. And you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. You know, while we're away, I had a question. And I was wondering, United States commercial flight carriers are currently conducting about 5,670 passenger flights a day, roughly 100,000 takeoffs and landings every day all over the globe. 5,600 passenger flights a day. Now, that's commercial. That doesn't include all the private pilots. And there are a bunch of them. A bunch of them. This guy doesn't know how airplanes fly. Phil, step down from your nomination. This is not the place for you to be. Maybe there's something else. I'm sure you're good at something. Let's put you in a place that you can actually do somebody some good. What do you think? All right. Speaking of that, David Brown, who is the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, has announced his resignation one day after the Democrat Lori Lightfoot became the first mayor in the city to lose a re-election bid in 40 years, since 1983. Now, there's two things going on here. It's like, dang, really? Oh, and 1983 was 40 years ago. 1983 was 40 years ago, yo. Yeah, I left college 40 years ago. He says this: I will be stepping down as Chicago Police Superintendent effective March 16th, which is in what, 13 days? So the incoming mayor can begin the process as soon as possible to hire the next superintendent. Brown said in the statement, "It's been an honor and a privilege to work alongside the brave men and women of the Chicago Police Department." Now, rising crime is a major concern, not only for residents, but business leaders in the city, many of whom decided it was better to pack up and leave altogether. Some people just said, this doesn't look like it's ever going to be fixed. And that's kind of an interesting perspective when people have been there for a number of years and they just look at the situation and go, this isn't just a thing we're going through. This is a decline that is never going to pull out. This is going to be some sort of apocalyptic thing. Enough to say, hey, listen, we're out of here. The handwriting, of course, was on the wall for Brown, as both of the mayoral candidates who faced off in an April 4th runoff, Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis, said they'd fire him if elected. Yeah. Frankly, pretty good time to go, yeah, no. Why don't we just get out of here? This dude's got enough, residual cash that he doesn't need to stay there and get fired and get put on unemployment and go through all of that. Brown faced a lot of criticism in his handling of the number of issues plaguing the city, from 2020 protests in the wake of George Floyd's death to rising crime and police staffing problems. Joseph Ferguson, then the city's inspector general, issued a report in 2021 detailing failures in the superintendent Brown's responding and faulting the city officials for, quote, poor coordination, inconsistency, and outright confusion. That left the police outflanked, under-equipped, and unprepared to respond to the scale of protests and unrest that were met in the downtown area and across Chicago's neighborhoods. During his tenure, Superintendent Brown endured complaints from the rank and file officers who frequently said they were exhausted and struggling with understaffing, and the pace of retirements accelerated in the last several years. People got the hell out. Homicides in Chicago also soared to generational highs during his time. At about an hour after Superintendent Brown's announcement on Wednesday afternoon, a police officer was killed while responding to a call of a man chasing a woman with a gun, the superintendent said. At the news conference, Mr. Brown said the officer who died was young and had a bright future ahead of him, and the suspect was in critical condition. Brown said he's going to take a job in Texas as a COO of a personal injury law firm. Yeah, probably a good idea. Lightfoot said, I accepted this resignation. I want to commend him for his accomplishments. She could have just said, I accept his resignation. Thanks for your hard work. No doubt that he worked hard. He just sucked at his job. No doubt he worked hard. You just suck at your job. Or maybe you didn't work hard the way we think you should work hard. Maybe you let some of these protests go on because that's part of the agenda that you're attached to. Maybe. You're never going to say you're going to take all that to your grave. All we can hope for in the Windy City is better in the toddling town. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody. And for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.